Good evening. Welcome to On TV. I have with me in the studio two faces that I'm sure that most people will recognize. Cara Flannigan, who has been an environmental advocate for our community for a number of years and has previously run for, as a candidate with the Green Party, and Peter McLarty, who is a longtime environmental advocate, and most people know him best through his work with Clean North. Now, over the last few months, I've had a number of people reach out to me about opening up a discussion on some of the effects of a ferrochrome smelting plant should Sault Ste. Marie become the chosen destination by Noront Resources. So I've invited two people tonight, Cara and Peter, to talk about this issue and to think about what are some of the things that may happen to our environment, or how are some of those things that, what are some of the things that could be impacted by this ferrochrome smelting operation. So Cara, I'd like to start with you. What are some of the things that you see as potential problems or benefits to our environment?
The ferrochrome processing plant for our community could be a wonderful addition. However, at this point, I think there's a lot of information that we don't have.
Okay.
And when it was first proposed, they mentioned that there was going to be public awareness and information sessions and consultation, and I think they've really fallen short on that. And now that we're at a position where we're one of two municipalities being considered at this point, I am really wanting to have a lot more information to know what the environmental impacts are, what the health impacts are, what the economic impacts are, because it's a huge opportunity or not for our community. We don't know what the impact's going to be.
Thank you, Cara. And what about you, Peter? Have you given some thought to the ferrochrome operation?
I've given a lot of thought to it. I've been in public education all my life, and I think the public is very poorly informed about what's going on. We've been assured by our leaders that once the site has been chosen, there will be public input at that time, and I think it's a little bit late to doing that.
Okay.
And with an election coming up right now, I think the public itself should be getting involved and finding out what the politicians know about ferrochrome and the smelting process. I've done quite a bit of reading as to what's happening with ferrochrome around the world, reading on the health aspects, and frankly, there are some deep concerns. And the long-term environmental impacts, even of the mining of the ferrochrome in the first place. I think we have to look at that as well as a society, not just as a local issue.
Right. Looking at sustainability as a bigger issue, as a regional issue and a global issue, for sure. So what are some of the things that we could expect? Like what are some of the byproducts of a ferrochrome plant?
Oh, without going into too much chemistry, it's a smelting process very similar to the making of steel that involves coal and turned into coke as a reducing agent. There will be a slag that's produced. That slag will have some contaminants in it. As to what's in there, we don't really know until we know what's in the ore in the first place.
Okay.
But the main risk that has been identified is chromium, or hexavalent chromium, which is one of the 5 different valences which chromium can have. And the hexavalent one seems to be related with cancers, and I think that's the greatest concern with most health people.
So from a health perspective, Cara, can you weigh in on any of that? Like what are some of the things that you think could potentially happen to our health?
Well, again, like I said, we don't have enough information to know the process that's going to be employed at the plant and what kinds of emissions there will be. Chromium-6, or hexavalent chromium, is a cancer-causing agent recognized by Health Canada. So that's something that really has to be on our radar. And the smelting process creates noise and dust and waste products and stuff that have to be very carefully controlled and monitored. So that's really important. And if you look at the two communities that are being considered, Timmins and Sault Ste. Marie, the co-location of the plant on the Algoma Steel property basically puts that development in our downtown area. So most of our population lives around the plant. So if there was a problem, that we don't know about at this point, look at the potential for exposure for the citizens of our community as compared to putting the plant out in Timmins, which is outside of the town.
I see. Right, so the physical location of it is problematic as well,
Well,
potentially.
Potentially, yes, we
right.
need to know.
Right, so do you anticipate anything into our waters, our lakes, our streams? Like, is that a
Well,
potential issue, do you think?
And certainly, and that's part of the information that we don't have. We don't know what the
Okay.
process is, what the environmental impact is going to be. Certainly, if there was a problem with hexavalent chromium or chromium-6 dust, then it is found it will affect the water from the St. Mary's River all downstream.
Right, into the lake, the Great Lakes,
Yeah.
certainly. Okay, well, Kara, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick little break here. Stay with us, everyone. We're going to pick up this topic very shortly. Welcome back. We're here talking with Kara Flannigan and Peter McLarty, two environmental advocates that most folks in Sault Ste. Marie would be very familiar with. One of the things that happens with democracy is that people like to have a voice in democracy, and people like to find like-minded people to get together and talk about pertinent issues like this, like the potential environmental impacts of a ferrochrome plant here. So Kara is going to share with us now some of the things that she's been doing to explore that with other community members and finding some folks to share this with.
Well, I would. And Peter and I work on a number of things together as well. So the interconnectedness that we have in our community is great. So you're talking about ideas that are going to affect our city, and the Ferrochrome smelter came up. Well, 18 months ago or so, the city council gave the go-ahead to go after the ferrochrome processing plant.
They put a lot of work into that.
Yes, they did. And so, but so many people didn't even know what was going on. Had never heard anything about it. There was no awareness, no understanding. So in talking with people and chromium-6 and what's the concerns, so we decided we had we had about 3 meetings in the community with people who were interested, and of that meeting it brought up a number of issues that weren't even on my radar. And so recognizing that we didn't have enough information to answer these questions for a variety of different reasons, we had put together a petition, online petition, and we got over 350 signatures on that, looking for information about how this is going to affect our housing costs. Will this affect our property values? Will this affect our flourishing ecotourism? Imagine if people wouldn't come here for that. Imagine if doctors wouldn't want to locate here, or specialists, because of that plant. We don't know these things, and we don't know how it would affect how many actual jobs would be brought into the community or be provided to the community. We don't understand all the complexities of how it will affect our environment and our health and our cancer rates. So you know, we know that there's technology, we know that there's automation and stuff. So and we know that there are ways of controlling risks,
mitigating risk.
Mitigating risks, exactly. But we don't know exactly. We don't have that information. And I think in going door to door and talking with people, many people weren't even aware that that was something that was happening in our community.
Correct. Yes, I think you're very correct there. So Peter, can you talk to me a little bit about what sort of avenue should the city be taking now in educating people? What would you like to see?
One of the forums is in the election process itself.
Right on.
That if the community is concerned, get out there to the town hall meetings and ask those questions. If they haven't got the answers, help them to where can they go to find those answers. Because the people who are making the decisions are the ones going to have to live with it in the future. And they should be well informed before making that process or that decision.
Yes, right.
The my bigger concern is looking at the big picture. That we're all concerned about global warming. The smelting process itself will probably contribute to global warming. The mining of the chromite in the first place is in the tundra, which is very sensitive, and it is a huge carbon sink. So we should be looking as a society at at should we be taking this stuff out of the ground in the first place.
Period, yeah.
Maybe we should just leave it there.
Please do.
And not only the impact on our community, like within our city boundaries, have the First Nations in our area and across the river being consulted? Has Sault, Michigan been consulted? And certainly when you open up the ring of fire with road services and stuff like that and rail, will the peat bogs be disrupted? And that's a very big carbon sink that holds carbon for many, many years. So as looking forward to the climate change and those sorts of things, we have to look at the picture bigger than just us,
Right.
and costing how it will affect the climate change going forward.
You know, that's such a good point about the global picture, and I often think about the teachings in the Anishinaabe culture about the 7 generations, and you know, you have to think that far ahead, and that's how, you know, many of the things that they did, many of the decisions that they made, were always taking care to consider that. How is it going to affect 7 generations ahead? But yeah, and of course the wetlands, we're worried about flooding, we're worried about different things, and Parks Canada just designated a whole section of Lake Superior as a heritage site for that very specific reason about the wetlands, and trying to protect them so that we can protect future generations. So there's so much to consider, and let's pick this up again. Let's keep the feet to the fire for the politicians and everyone out there. When you start attending these things or think about these things, ask the politicians that you're talking with, what are they prepared to do?
And those minerals aren't going anywhere, so there's no hurry. If we're going to do this, we want to do it right for the environment, for the people, for climate change, for all the right reasons.
For the economy. We all want a stable, healthy economy,
Yes.
but we also want a stable, healthy world to live in, and our little corner of it. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll pick this up again. Peter, Kara, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I've learned quite a bit, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Lynne.